Hi. Okay, so, I was watching a video and it was on prohibition, and there was at one point where it talks about how Zelda Fitzgerald was the original flapper. No. And apparently a lot of you seem to think that she was. No. So we're going to go down this path. I don't know where that came. I don't know. I know where it came from. Great Gatsby. Worst book ever. Even Scott Fitzgerald came to hate that book. Okay, so first thing. The flapper lifestyle started in Europe. We were the last ones to latch onto it. It did not start in America. Surprise! Olive Thomas was... the movie The Flapper was the first to bring the lifestyle to America. I'm sure that there were some that were slowly trickling in, but that movie, The Flapper, so Olive Thomas was officially the first flapper in America. As for the first official flapper, nobody knows. I mean, you had like the Gibson girls and some of the other kind of rebellious girls. But, so here's the thing. The idea of flapper, it's been traced back to the 1600s. It was for prostitutes back then. And then, of course, in the 1800s, it was still used for the prostitutes. And then after World War One and through World War One, it kind of morphed and changed. Fashion was changing as well, and you know, slang has a funny way of changing over the years. I mean, it's changed massively just in my 35, almost 36 years. There's this right here where it says that in the early 1900s, these young men were watching female acrobats, and he says there's a stunning flapper. So female stage performers, they started calling them flappers. And then it changed into female dancers, so dancers were called flappers, and it just, so when you look at the outfits, you can kind of see where that works. The newspaper said a flapper, we may explain, is a young lady who has not yet been promoted to long frocks and the wearing of her hair up. And that was in 1908. So again, you have to understand that it went from being for prostitution onto the stage scene, and then it started to morph into everyday life. But as for what we see as the flapper, with the frumpy kind of outfits, you seem to think that it's the Hollywoodized version of like the again, sorry for outside, it was snowing for a while and now everyone's going stark crazy. This Hollywood idea of the fringy outfits and sparkly outfits, and no, look at pictures. Drive me nuts. Just like my great grandmother could never understand why you guys were so obsessed with feather boas. She said, "What are those for?" She said, "What pictures are they looking at?" So, over in Europe, it had been going on for years and years and years. And all of a sudden, the movie The Flapper comes, and then we have it. There was a illustrator, famous illustrator. You see the Life book cover or the Life magazine covers. You know like the women with their cigarettes and all that. What is his name? John Held, I think. John Held Jr. Anyway, he used Zelda for some of his portraits, but they're trying to say that she was the prototype for flappers. No, she wasn't. I can remember my grandma saying one time, because I was actually reading a book for school, and she said, oh gosh, she was. When I mentioned Zelda Fitzgerald, she freaked out, kind of like when, with my grandmother, I mentioned the Watergate scandal. She got so mad. She's like, oh. I'm like, okay, we won't mention that anymore. But my great grandmother, she said, Zelda is not a flapper. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, my whole class, we talked about how she was this rebellious girl and she did this. She said, oh yeah, there's rebellion for attention, and that's what she was doing. So apparently all the other flappers were well aware of what she was doing. She said, oh yeah, I smoked, I drank, I did some things for attention. She said, I did my fit of rebellion. She said, but there were other things that I was doing because I wanted to. She said that there's rebellion and then there's just so that you can be comfortable with who you are. She said Zelda was doing it obviously for attention. I mean, she was there. She saw it. I wasn't going to question great grandma. You don't do that. Not my great grandma, I'll tell you that. But she did not have a nice thing to say about Zelda. But anyway, so yeah, you have like this massive Hollywoodized attitude of what, and I love the dramatizations on some of these shows. They'll talk about somebody from the 20s and they have it totally wrong. It's like, have you looked at some of these pictures? Obviously not, because that's not the makeup that they used. So anyway, just like with here, it says the flappers weren't liked because they wore excessive makeup, they drank, and they treated sex in a casual manner. They smoked, they drove automobiles, and so basically it was like everything that was supposed to be what a woman was not supposed to do, they did. Which is kind of weird now, the whole driving an automobile. It's like, but anyway, so no, Zelda was not the first flapper. And although Thomas was not the first flapper, she introduced the flapper concept to America. So don't fall for stuff like that. Honestly, read a book, look online, do a little more research. This Great Gatsby way of thinking is insane. Just remember, even Fitzgerald hated that book.